বৰঠাকুৰ IS একাডেমি প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা।
Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 27th May 2021. Let us begin with the first article today. WhatsApp approaches Delhi High Court to challenge new IT rules. So, WhatsApp has filed a plea in front of the Delhi High Court stating that the new IT rules which were brought in by the Government of India on February 25th violate the fundamental rights to privacy and right to freedom of speech and expression. What is the rule that they are challenging here? Particularly, WhatsApp is concerned with one rule that requires intermediaries to enable the identification of the first originator of the information in India on the end-to-end encrypted messaging services, which WhatsApp is terming as a dangerous invasion of privacy. According to the IT rules, the social media companies are required to enable the identification of the first originator of the information upon the government's request or through a court order. WhatsApp argued that this particular rule breaks the end-to-end encryption on its messaging service and as well as the privacy principles underlying it. It goes as far as to say that this is an infringement on fundamental rights of the citizen. Now, the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code rules for 2021, as I said earlier, was notified on 25th February in the midst of concerns from various experts, domain experts particularly, both in terms of technology and in terms of legality of it, and security concerns. Now, this is not the first time that these rules have been challenged. So, under these rules, the government also intends to moderate digital news platforms. So, when these rules were first notified in February, news portals such as The Wire, The News Minute, Quint, and other digital media outlets approached High Court to stop these rules from enacting. Now, these petitions, particularly the news portal petitions, claim that the new rules seek to regulate online news platforms. But coming back to the issue of WhatsApp filing a plea in front of the Delhi High Court stating privacy and interlinking it with fundamental rights, when you look at it pragmatically, the stance of WhatsApp is not at all arbitrary. It is actually true that when they are asking for the originator of the message, it does impede on his right to privacy, because at the end of the day his data is to be shared with the government upon the request of the government or through a court order. So that does infringe on the rights of that particular individuals who is using these services because of the security aspects associated with these apps. So that is where things stands with the new IT rules and WhatsApp. But as far as Facebook and Google are concerned, they have clearly stated that they need some more time to come up with or to meet the standards set by the new law. Moving on to the next article, Center seeks compliance reports from intermediaries. Since February, these companies, IT, social media companies, news companies, digital media companies, everybody were given almost all 3 months of time for the compliance with the new laws. Respectively, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has written to all social media intermediaries with over 50 lakh registered users, particularly in our country, requesting the details of their compliance. Meaning the government is asking, we have given you a set of rules. Out of those rules, how many have you complied with? So yesterday was the last day for the deadline to meet for these companies to transition to the new compliance laws. But as you are well aware, except Ko, the Indian social media app, no other social media intermediary or digital media company had actually complied with the laws, at least to a greater percentage. So the ministry had sought all the details regarding what were the steps taken by these companies to meet with the government order that was notified on February of 25th. Now, the government clearly stated that they have the right to seek any additional information as may be permitted within these rules and the IT Act, and they were requested to reply within a stipulated period of time and share the details. Now the companies have requested for additional year time for compliance with the new law, stating that due to the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic, there is a lot to be done, and these things, the coronavirus had put wrench into their workings because these new laws require additional human resources, meaning more hiring, which they could not due to coronavirus pandemic. So we have to see how the ministry is going to reply or react to the request from certain social media and digital media companies. Coming to the next article, bid by WhatsApp to stop new norms from coming into effect. So this move, particularly from WhatsApp, was a last movement to the intermediary guidelines. Since 2 days back, we were hearing some rumblings from certain sources stating that WhatsApp, though Facebook wanted to challenge these intermediaries, it was finally decided that WhatsApp was going to file the petition in front of a court. But the central government has been pretty clear with its stand. It states that there is an established judicial dictum that clearly states that no fundamental right, including the right to privacy, is absolute and is subject to reasonable restrictions. Now, the government is invoking this part because WhatsApp is directly linking their sharing of data with government with the right to privacy, which is directly linked to the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution. Now, WhatsApp has said that traceability requires private messaging services like WhatsApp to keep track of who said what and who shared what for billions of messages every day. That is absolutely true, but they can track it. They have the means and the ways, and it is inbuilt into their services to track every moment, that every step or moment that happens in their applications. Once a user enters the world of WhatsApp, they pretty much control or have access to what the particular user is doing. So everything is trackable data. Nothing cannot be hid from the service provider as such. But the question comes to whether the service provider is willing to share the same data with the government or law enforcement agencies or not. So it goes both ways. The data that the government is asking is actually the entire private profile of an individual who is using WhatsApp service, and for whatever reason it can be asked through government by a government order or through a court order. So the again question comes back to whether the rights of the individual is greater than the greater good. This is what happened in Apple versus FBI case also. So a few years back there was a terrorist attack in United States, and the terrorist was killed in subsequent action, and his phone was an iPhone. When the FBI tried to request Apple to unlock his phone, Apple rejected, stating that it impinged on his right to privacy, and the court supported Apple's stance. The argument Apple made during that proceedings in United States was that if we compromise our privacy laws in one case and agree to crack the killed terrorist iPhone, the FBI and the other law enforcement agencies are going to use this as an in into our privacy, security, and our software and exploit it. So that was their stance, and the court pretty much agreed with that, and the FBI had no other choice but to go with some third-party Israeli software provider who was able to crack that phone open for them. So this is what is happening. It's against the privacy and the limit that is associated with it. Are people using messaging services and social media sites to carry out illegal activities in certain times, organize crowds to disturb peace and law and order? Yes, we have particularly seen the same Twitter being used for riots in London, riots in America during the BLM movement, particularly in the areas of Portland and Oregon. We are consistently seeing these left-wing anarchist groups organize, meet, discuss and disperse using Twitter, and Twitter is taking no action during this. For the first time, we have seen Twitter being used as a medium to organize groups and riots during the Delhi riots. So India hadn't seen that part till Delhi riots happened, or Delhi riots took place in Delhi. So the government is concerned that people are going to use these platforms more and more and more to organize and to use it for nefarious purposes. Is that an actual legitimate worry of the government? Yes. Does that mean that WhatsApp has to compromise its privacy laws? The answer is no. So there has to be a middle ground where WhatsApp can actually curtail the spread of misinformation or fake news or whatever you call it, all while ensuring the rights of the individual user complying to the nation's law. So this is turning out to be very interesting rather than some normal boring fight between a WhatsApp private company and a government entity. This is actually going to be very interesting to observe what Delhi High Court is going to come up with. So moving on to the next article, country reports 202,570 cases and 3,577 deaths. So particularly we are reading this article because the interesting trend of positivity rates that we are seeing in northern states. From whatever the data that scientists and observers and statisticians have been observing, COVID-19 doesn't leave any area alone. If your state or your district or your hometown missed the first state, they got caught up in the second wave. If they miss the second wave, they are going to get caught up in the third wave. So no area is safe, secure enough to be protected, totally protected from the clutches of COVID-19. One is vaccination. Get as many people you can vaccinated to reduce the death rate. Since the beginning of the second wave of coronavirus in India, our death load has been pretty much consistent, hovering around anywhere between 3,500 to 4,000. Mind you, this is not inclusive of the cases that are being underreported. If we actually count the underreported cases into this on a statistical average basis, the death rate is going to be above 4,000. So, though the positivity rates are lower in certain states, the positive numbers, case numbers are also lower than what we saw in the peak of second wave. It can be stated that the second wave is actually flattening. Second factor that is contributing to these lower numbers is the lower testing percentages that states are carrying out. And despite reporting lower number of cases in the state, the death rates are pretty much consistent. So people are dying despite what the data says. This article is interesting because particularly we are seeing high percentage of average COVID-19 test positivity rates, TPR, that is ranging from 31.5% to 5.7% in Assam. The highest being Sikkim, where the TPR is anywhere between 31.5% to 32%, and in Assam particularly anywhere between 5 to 6% of TPR. So the idea behind, when I was speaking to one of a statistician who is actually studying this data, his observation was very interesting. He clearly stated that if one area is seeing high rates of positivity rates, that is TPR, test positivity rate, and the other area is seeing lower, maybe there is a discrepancy there, but at the end of the day, we are going to see an high TPR from that area in the future also. And the only way to stop that is to vaccinate as many people you can and ensure that the death rates are lower than what the national average is. So moving on to the next article, Assam government creates separate department for welfare of BTR areas. So the government of Assam on Wednesday decided to create the welfare of Bodoland department, a special department to deal with issues related to the 4 districts that are governed under the Bodoland territory region or territorial region. Now the affairs of the Bodoland area will be taken care by this welfare board. Earlier, before the special creation of a separate department, that is welfare for Bodoland department, the affairs of Bodoland were under the welfare of plain tribes and backward classes department. This announcement specially came after a cabinet meeting chaired by new Chief Minister Biswas Sarma. It also decided setting up a Bodoland Administrative Staff College in Korjahar, which will act as a headquarters for the BTR, and they have released funds so that they can set up an office and facilities will be made available in the shortest period of time. So going back to a little bit of local demographical history, the Bodos are the largest plain dwelling ethnic community in the northeast, and the focus that is being placed by cabinet on this area and these tribes, though attributed to political loyalties and whatnot, but at the end of the day, there is a certain feeling or observation that these areas have to be given priority so that development takes place in a faster pace. So that is what happened. A new department will be constituted and a staff college will be set up to ensure welfare reaches the plains regions. And moving on to the next article, imperious missteps. So before getting into this article, let us understand one thing. Who is an administrator? So administrator is an common denominator, common post in Commonwealth nations. In India, it means that the President of India appoints an administrator. Administrators differ from the governors of the states of India, as they are an agent of the president and not an head of the state. Currently, Lakshadweep had a new administrator since December, and the administrator of Dadar and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, Mr. Patel, took charge of Lakshadweep in December of last year. Since he took over the charge of Lakshadweep, he has come out with drafts of the various acts or orders that rules he wants to implement in the islands of Lakshadweep. Few of them are Animal Preservation Regulation, Lakshadweep Prevention of Antisocial Activities Regulation, Lakshadweep Development Authority Regulation, and amendment to the Lakshadweep Panchayati Staff Rules. So in a slew of proposals that were ranging from ban on beef to disqualification of Panchayati poll aspirants with more than 2 children, which form a part of draft regulations for Lakshadweep, which were cleared by its administrator, Mr. Patel, have led to a lot of turmoil in the Union Territory. So, particularly, let us go through one by one of what these draft rules and regulations that Mr. Patel has proposed and brought in lieu of as his role as an administrator of Lakshadweep. Particularly, the first one that he introduced was the Anti-Gunda Act. This is particularly interesting because when crime rate of Lakshadweep is concerned, the crime rate is very, very low. And the second thing is the establishment of development authority with powers to acquire land for developmental purposes. And the second thing that he was accused was also the fact that he demolished a lot of structures lining up the coastline, stating that they were infringing upon the Coast Guard Act. So that is also another criticism that he has been widely criticized for. And the most controversial of all these things was the ban on beef proposed under the draft Lakshadweep Animal Prevention Regulations, because the Union Territory of Lakshadweep, according to 2011 census, has a population of 64,000 people, and out of which 95% of the population is Muslim. So it's a Muslim majority state in India. Only 95% of Muslim population, 2.6% of Hindu population, and the rest is constituted by Christians and other religious people. And this is where a lot of pushback has come from, banning beef in a Muslim majority state. That has been the statements that has been doing rounds on social media platforms and in the news channels and various local newspapers in Kerala also. And as per the draft rules, particularly the Lakshadweep Animal Preservation Regulation, these draft rules, no person shall directly or indirectly sell, keep, store, transport, offer, or expose for sale or buy beef or beef products in any form from anywhere in Lakshadweep. Now, this draft empowers the administrator or a competent authority to seize beef or beef products being transported, and if found guilty, the person can end up in a prison and can be awarded a prison term which may extend to 10 years but shall not be less than 7 years, and a fine which may be extended to rupees 5 lakhs but shall not be less than 1 lakh. So this is the most controversial regulation that was being proposed and discussed, for which Mr. Patel has received the highest percentage of pushback, ensuring that statements from the Chief Minister of Kerala was also noted here. So according to the draft, coming back to the next one, according to the draft of Panchayat Regulations Amendment draft, there is a proposal to prevent those who have more than 2 children from contesting the Panchayat elections. And the third criticism that he is receiving was the dilution of norms for serving alcohol at resorts. As a bit to promote tourism, his idea was that he proposed the supply of alcohol to be allowed on populated islands. Earlier, the liquor policy was pretty clear. You cannot sell or distribute liquor in populated islands of Lakshadweep. Liquor was allowed only at resorts in uninhabited Pangram Island. Only in that island liquor was allowed, and that too inside a resort. Now with the new draft proposal, liquor can be sold, distributed in any part of Lakshadweep. So on the proposed regulation of banning sale or transportation of beef or beef products, Mr. Patel clearly stated that those who are opposing it should tell us why they are opposing it. And on COVID-19 regulatory entry regulations, he said that he had acted in accordance with the central government guidelines. So what is he talking about? When the second wave of COVID-19 was going on in the mainland of India, he lifted travel restrictions and allowed tourists to come in, which immediately had a direct impact on the native population of Lakshadweep, where earlier the cases were very low. It was pretty much under control, and when the travel restrictions were lifted, people came in, and as a result, the COVID positivity rates and COVID positive cases shot up in a short span of time, and the local population has been accusing him of lifting restrictions, which directly led to COVID cases and COVID fatalities. So of the ordinances, let me revise what ordinances that he's talking about here. One, he is talking about Lakshadweep Animal Preservation Regulation, which would ban beef consumption, transportation, sale, and whatnot, and will attract a imprisonment. Will attract prison time anywhere between the highest being 10, but not less than 7 years. A fine extending up to 5 lakhs, but not less than 1 lakh. The second thing is Lakshadweep Prevention of Anti-Social Activities, the Gunda Act. The third is Lakshadweep Development Authority Regulation, which would give sweeping powers to the authority to take land without even though they don't have consent from the landowner. Mr. Patel was observing that Lakshadweep is very close to Maldives. Look at how Maldives developed and benefited from global tourism. Why can't Lakshadweep do the same and allow private players to build resorts here so that tourism gets a big boost, and we'll have our own idea of Maldives and develop Lakshadweep into a global tourism hub, because the archipelago does share a lot of similarities with Maldives, because the geographical structure and the zone that they share is similar to one another. The fourth, particularly after the Development Authority, was amendment to Lakshadweep Panchayati staff rules, which again states that if you have more than 2 children, you will be ineligible to participate in the panchayat polls, which again draws a lot of criticism to a certain extent, that the local MP who is an elected MP named Muhammad Faisal have spoken against it is very vocally, and has even wrote a letter to President of India to recall Mr. Patel from the role of the administrator. As I said earlier, even Kerala Chief Minister had a statement in regards to this. He stated that the administrator's actions posed a serious challenge to the culture and life of people of Lakshadweep, and he backed up his statement by stating that the people of Kerala and Lakshadweep share a stronger ties that go way back. So before moving on to the next article, there was an editorial particularly regarding to the constitutional crisis that is brewing in Nepal. The reason I didn't discuss this today is because I'm actually waiting on few additional information that I could incorporate into the class tomorrow. In the next few classes, I'll take up that editorial, or I'll take up a special part out of Hindu analysis to explain you what is the current crisis that is brewing in Nepal, and what is the future, and what role can Indian government play in ensuring that Nepal leans India away from the Chinese influence. That's the only reason that I didn't include, because I was waiting for few additional information that we'll cover in the next few classes. Moving on to the next article, Quad targeting China Consul General. So he was in an event that was being organized by the Chinese consulate itself, that is in Mumbai, and some other private NGO. And during these interactions and during this meet, the China's Consul General in Mumbai said that the self-contradictory stance of India has to stop. What is he talking about? He's saying that India is asking China to keep supply chains open amid the current surge in India due to coronavirus. India is seeing a huge surge in imports of supplies from China particularly, all while threatening to decouple economically, that is, from China. So two things here. One, he is referring to Quad, that is India, United States, Japan, Australia grouping. The second is India's stance of being Atmanirbhar, though it doesn't say directly that India is going to decouple from the Chinese economy and Chinese supply chain. The entire idea behind the Atmanirbhar initiative is to do exactly the same, that is decoupling from the Chinese supply chain ecosystem and become independent. So he is criticizing both the stands. He has hit out at the Quad grouping, describing it as an attempt to containment. Economically, they want to decouple from Chinese supply chains. Mr. Tang said that China is the first country to get out of the pandemic and resume development. That is absolutely true, because they had 2 months advance notice of what is going on with the coronavirus. So it makes sense that they come out of it. And their tactics of controlling coronavirus pandemic has been the most aggressive one. And because of it, people did lose their lives. And China is back to normal in terms of production, in terms of social life. He is absolutely true about it. And he is also saying that China has been offering India and the region with huge opportunities. Here he has invoked India's and China's vaccine production capability, and he was suggesting to the idea that India and China must join hands and work closer to get a victory over pandemic and help our region and the world to overcome the coronavirus pandemic, which originated in China, to remind. So particularly the Chinese criticism comes in two forms. One, India is talking about decoupling from the Chinese supply chain ecosystem. That is one. Second is the Quad grouping, which actually worries China a lot, because Quad, if successful and if implemented in a proper way, where every state, every country is honest about its goal that it wants to achieve through Quad, it could be a formidable force against China in the coming few years. Moving back to the concept of China helping India in terms of supplying critical needs, particularly the oxygen concentrator and raw materials for our medicines and vaccines. True, but China hasn't been very clear with those particular raw materials that we needed to fight the second wave, because the Chinese companies and Chinese logistic companies were very troublesome in the initial stages of our second wave of COVID-19. Because when we were requesting, we didn't ask for help from the Chinese government. Whatever the products that were imported from China were purchased by companies and the government of India through Chinese companies. We didn't go through the China government, we went directly to the supplier and we bought it from China. That is absolutely true. Second, we didn't ask for the help and we denied any help that was given to us. The third point to note here is, he's talking about China being very helpful in terms of supplying whatever India needs. That is not true. Because as I said earlier, in the initial stages of the second wave, China has been very rough with us, in the sense that they have prevented smooth flow of goods from China to India. They created a lot of logistical problems. When our external affairs minister raised the particular issue with his counterpart in China, then things got better. Till the time India raised a complaint, Chinese companies were playing footloose with our items, because they were delaying the transportation through logistics and whatnot. The third, as far as the vaccine capability is concerned, India and China does have the highest percentage or the highest capacity to develop and manufacture vaccines. But I don't see any time in the near future where India and China will join hands to have or develop a agreement in vaccine manufacturing. The second criticism, or the most criticism that India received from Chinese side, was the recent decision of the government of India to not include Chinese telecom firms in 5G trials, and place more stringent curbs on FDI coming from countries that share a border with India, that was particularly aimed at Beijing. When the government decided that India is not going to allow Chinese firms to participate in the 5G trials, it was directly aimed at Beijing, because in the last 6 or 7 years alone, China had hacked into Indian computers from Indian embassies all around the world. There is a clear evidence, and these have been reported widely, where Chinese were accused and found to be hacking into our embassy computers all around the world. That is one thing. The second thing is, when it comes to telecom technology, China has been accused and found guilty of using their hardware to spy on the host country, meaning the country which purchased equipment from China. They found that China was using their products to spy on their citizens indirectly and secretly. So India doesn't want that particular vulnerability in our telecommunication sector. So India has been rightly in protecting citizen privacy by denying Chinese companies to take part in the 5G trials. As far as coming to the RECP deal, India is not in much favor of joining the RECP deal. RCEP is a regional comprehensive economic partnership which China is promoting in a big way, in part with and in tandem with their One Belt One Road initiative. So India has been staying pretty far away from the RCEP deal, and China is not happy, because if India gets on board with the RCEP deal, it ensures that whichever the South Asian countries opposing it right now will fall in line and will join the deal. So moving on to the next article. Balkan turns to Egypt to calm West Asia. So the US Secretary of State has landed in Egypt to have a diplomatic discussion with his Egyptian counterpart and the president of Egypt, because Egypt has been a key partner in securing a ceasefire between Hamas militant group and Israel in the Israel-Palestine conflict. For the longest period of time, America has been neglecting Egypt as a potential partner in the Middle East. But with the recent developments and with the recent steps taken by the Egyptian President Sisi in ensuring peace in the Middle East, and his actions in curbing cross-border terrorism, that is smuggling from Egypt into Gaza, he actually ensured that US will engage with Egypt from henceforth in ensuring a calmer West Asia. First, US has been neglecting Egypt because US was of the opinion that Egypt cannot play any meaningful role in the Middle Eastern peace process. Two, they were proved wrong, because President Sisi has been very active, very productive in ensuring peace in the region, stability in the region, and he has been very active in negotiations with both the Israelis and the Hamas militants in ensuring and finally getting an elusive ceasefire between those two people going. Remember, a ceasefire was being offered by most of the Western countries, which Israel clearly denied, but when it was offered through Egypt, Israel accepted it. So now US considers Egypt to be a very viable partner in the Middle East, particularly in the West Asian region, through Sisi being the president of Egypt. Moving on to the next article. Don't allow US bases, Taliban tells neighbors. So with September 11 nearing and the pullback of American troops out of Afghanistan imminent, there were whispers that were coming out of some news channels stating that America is interested in setting up an army base, that is an US base, in neighboring countries. So US wants to set up a base that would allow Americans to operate from their soil and ensure that they'll take counterinsurgency actions, not based in Afghanistan, but based out of Afghanistan, but against insurgents in Afghanistan. To which the Taliban warned Afghanistan neighbors, stating that don't allow US to operate military bases on your soil. And they said that if you do that, so Taliban will ensure that we will take certain action against you. As I said, Washington is in final stages of withdrawing its troops from Afghanistan, and there has been a lot of diplomatic negotiations, back channel diplomatic negotiations going on between US and Pakistan to set up a secret US base in Pakistan, to which Pakistan has come out and said that we are not going to allow for setting up a US base in Pakistan, but at the end of the day you might see a US base operating out of Pakistan, or at least a US base in the surrounding countries surrounding Afghanistan. Thank you. Stay safe. Namaste.
বৰঠাকুৰ IS একাডেমি প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা।
বৰঠাকুৰ IS একাডেমি।